our next guest speaker to join us, Liz, to tell us why NeoLife nutrition. Why would you purchase a NeoLife nutritional supplement over something that you could be buying from the retail store? Because not all nutrition has been created equal. And so I've invited a very special guest speaker. Her name is Liz Geerdts. She's a dietitian. She's highly specialized in her field. She's an expert when it comes to supplementation and nutrition and health and the human body. And so she can talk about this far better than I can. Liz, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, happy Mother's Day, even though it is from yesterday, but to all the moms or the moms to be, or perhaps the grandmoms or even great grandmothers on the call. I hope you had a special day, and I hope you got treated and spoiled the way you spoil others. In fact, you know, as you were hearing earlier when Drew was actually saying and recognizing the fact that women are the glue in the family, and they are very much the decision makers. And certainly when it comes to food, that dreaded question of what are we having for dinner tonight? And you've always got to think about something that's easy, good for your kids, good for the family. What's everybody going to like? And it's very challenging. So, and of course, as he said, you're probably holding down a job. You know, women are out in the workplace these days. So you're trying to really be a lot of things to different people. And that's what I realized in my profession also, that I was meeting up with moms who would bring their kids, perhaps, or even sometimes their spouses or their partners, and come along to try and find out what to eat, or they have a health concern. And I just realized it's such a challenge to have people change habits as much as they want to. It's to sustain the change that's so difficult. So that's when I started realizing that if I could find some way of, instead of watching people not make the changes and finding those gaps increasing in their dietary intake, which have ramifications, they certainly have health ramifications. You know, when we talked about ending this trend of chronic disease, we're not out there to go and try and change, you know, get all the sick people in the world and say, take a supplement and it's going to go away. That's not really our aim here. Our aim is helping people to make lifestyle choices that make a difference. And part of those lifestyle choices are making the right food choices. In fact, probably people don't realize what an important decision it actually is. And so when we go back to the reality of life and the difficulties of trying to get it all together and trying to do all the right things, you know, and then sometimes feeling guilty because we believe we're not, that's, you know, it's difficult to live with. So I realized that by helping people put something that's perhaps whole food based, or is bringing in the right nutrient that might be lacking, or some sort of ideas into their daily decisions about food, a supplement is going to very often assist. And very often people are finding themselves in awkward situations, perhaps tired and not able to manage the stresses of their day, and picking up weight and all the challenges that we know. I don't have to remind you about them on a daily basis. So we're going to just go through some slides. And I'm going to go through just a basic set of products that I think makes sense as a starting place, because it's overwhelming sometimes to make choices and everyone has slightly different needs. But what's interesting is that as human beings, we're all made in similar ways, and we all have basic needs that our bodies have. We're all made in the cells, and we need to feed ourselves. So I want to just sort of share my screen with you and my presentation, just to sort of go through some of these slides with you. Let's just get to the beginning here. Let's go there. Okay, so at NeoLife, I'm just going to, that's my relationship with NeoLife, the reason why I associated myself, because as I say, it was difficult to get people to sustain the changes. And it was actually quite frustrating. And I would also find it sort of quite time wasting sometimes to develop a sort of a diet or a plan, which people think if you just give them a plan, they're going to be able to follow it. But we all know it's difficult to change habits. It's difficult for people to make those changes that they know are important, but can't always do. So we want to make people feel better by getting the right nutrition, look better, because they will, by using the right sort of skincare and all those factors that come into play in the NeoLife world. We living better also in terms of the way what we use in our homes, you know, the cleaning materials that we have, the dishwashing agents, the detergents we use on our clothes and on our skin as a result. You know, all that comes into play to complete the picture. But if we just look from a nutritional point of view, Okay, so let's just get the slides to move. Here we are. This is a kind of a little graphic, very simplistic, and it's very simple. You know, there's sometimes the information might sound like, oh, this is a lot, I can't absorb all this, but actually let's just keep it simple. And when we're sharing, because that's what we're doing, we're not expected to be, when we're sharing our information and our story, and as Alice did, she just learned about the products as she started to feel better and to realize what her body needed, predominantly from a food point of view, but she needed to speed up that process. And that's really what I'm saying here. The gaps get wider when we aren't eating certain food groups, perhaps, or not enough of them. And the requirements are pretty high, you know, to do things on a daily basis. It's quite a challenge for all of us. It doesn't really matter how much knowledge you have, to actually implement knowledge is quite challenging from a dietary point of view, to get some exercise, watch your weight, get enough sleep, manage your stress. Those are all the things we're being asked to do to be healthy individuals in the world in which we live now. So this little graphic is really, I think most of us can relate to it. You know, we're energetic when we're young. We then grow up and we have kids who are very energetic and make us tired. But also the stresses and strains of just, you know, being a parent, of being a mom, of trying to do all the right things. And sometimes we even go to the doctors and say, you know, I'm not feeling well. And sometimes you can be healthy, but not well. In other words, we go there and there's nothing actually wrong with you. And we've often hear stories like that where people, there's nothing actually on the medical chart that says there's something wrong with you, but actually you're feeling tired, you're just very much below par. Or on the other hand, maybe there are things that are little red flags that are saying, watch that sugar level, watch your cholesterol, watch your weight. And because you're busy, well, you know, you'll do it tomorrow. And unfortunately, eventually those little conditions get given a name. You know, they could become diabetes, they could become arthritis. And so then we end up getting into that sick zone, which we've also learned as populations to start to live with. You know, we get medicated, so of course that keeps us going, but our quality of life is quite a challenge. And I think that's where people don't really realize we don't have to slip into that sick zone. And in fact, this little graph, I believe that little downwards slant there could actually even be shifted over somewhat. And it starts even younger than even this graph depicts. And it's starting to even affect our children. You know, people in their 20s are starting to feel like this, and they're starting to get conditions that have been given names, and things like high blood pressure or even diabetes is actually making its way and finding its way into a much younger population than we previously thought. And of course, yes, all of us are going to slip off this graph at some point in time. But I think the challenge, you know, and even to myself, I've said, I'd rather just slip off the graph, but be healthy. We don't have to hobble along the finish line. And that's actually what's happening to us. So we're living longer in spite of ourselves and in spite of our choices and in spite of the foods that are available to us, actually, because we're being medicated and yes, often not learning anything about why we're in that situation. So I felt that putting in a supplement to help people narrow those gaps, not allow them to take over their health, was an important thing. And so health really is our greatest wealth, actually, because we want to make the world a healthier and a happier place, but it's a lot easier to be happier when you're healthier. It definitely, it helps you to get along. So this is, as a little sort of pyramid, if you like, or a little triangle, is what mainstream science is suggesting we eat in terms of the proportions. And of course, yes, there are lots of offshoots of this. And I know that a lot of the population get frustrated because there's always a new theory about this, or eat more of that and what have you. But mainstream science, which is what our scientific advisory board stick with until such time as something is evidence-based and been proven over and over to change this. This is where science is actually telling us our nutrition should be based. This is our sort of middle point. But what's happening in our modern diet and our Western way of living, if you like, we've kind of turned it completely on its head. And you can see the proportions are completely out. And you'll notice also, we're not just talking a supplement and only food, because diseases of lifestyle are about how much we exercise, how much sleep we get, whether we choose to smoke, all those factors, whether we can manage our stress, that all comes into play. So exercise, and again, this exercise is not about having to be good at a sport or having to go out there and join a gym. Exercise is about being physically active. Our bodies are designed to move. So the reason why we put food into our bodies, one of them is to give us energy to enable us to move, and the other is to give us all the wherewithal to let those muscles and have the tools that we do have to be able to work properly. That's why we have nutrients. That's why we take food. It keeps our body moving. So you'll see that we do a very simple little graphic here, and we don't make it complicated. We don't have to. And here's just showing you the sort of wrong proportions, really. But what I wanted to highlight was where that food is going. It's going into cells that you and I are all made of. And obviously, yes, we would like to have healthy cells. And if we have healthy cells, you can see it's got a nice plump membrane around it that's fluid and oily. That's actually how we are designed. And those arrows are really the nutrients that you and I are eating, whether it's in the food or a drink or whatever it is that we're taking in and that a particular cell needs. So that could be an eye cell, it could be a kidney cell or a skin cell. It will have specific needs and nutrients will gravitate to that, and that cell will enable them to go in because it needs that particular nutrient. So the body does all the work for you. It makes those decisions. We simply have to give it the tools to do that. And so that's really where the challenge is. And so when a lot of what you're going to hear from me tonight is really things you possibly have heard before or know about. And you know you're supposed to eat them, but there's a reason why we should be taking them in. And food is supposed to be pleasurable. Food is supposed to be sociable. It's got a whole lot of sensations that come into being. It's supposed to look good. It's supposed to taste good. It's supposed to smell good. But in fact, that's often where it stops from our point of view, is that we only go with the sensations and don't realize that there is actually a very important need for some of the nutrients that that food provides. And so what can happen is that our cells, because they don't get some of the basics, which we'll chat about, start to look like we have unhealthy cells. And if enough cells look like that unhealthy one, we start to look and feel like that unhealthy cell. And that's why sometimes we're dragging ourselves around. Perhaps we can't sleep well, even though we want to. And we haven't got the energy to go and exercise, even though we know we should. And we start to pick up weight as a result of an unhealthy looking cell, simply because everything isn't working the way it should. And so nutrients in our food actually play a very important part. I think we kind of know that our food is important, but I want to know, just to kind of highlight some of those benefits, important things for you. Right, so let's just move this slide along. Yeah, the slide seems to be stuck. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the products that NeoLife have decided to help fill those gaps. So whole grains, for example, and here we've got a product that's got oils in it. So most people don't associate grains with oils. Most people associate grains with starchy stuff and carbs, and then they think they're fattening, and I'm not going to eat those carbs. So they tend not to want to eat grains, wheat perhaps, or rice, because what you're actually eating, and it's quite true, is you're eating a lot of starch. Because the food industry these days has polished and made our products and foods with a shelf life much more convenient for all of us. So in fact, it's not a whole grain anymore. And certainly the oils, and you might not have thought about it, but the wheat that grows in the field has got wheat germ oil, but it doesn't find its way into our packet of pasta, for example, or into our bread. The rice that we eat, it has the rice bran oil naturally growing with it when it's in the field. But in fact, again, it doesn't find its way into our packet of rice. And very often that packet of rice is polished rice. So it cooks up white and fluffy every time. And yes, it is just a whole lot of starch. So we're not getting the whole grain. And in fact, the oil is what's so important, because that oil actually goes to that round circle or membrane, which is oily, and keeps it fluid and keeps it plump and enables the nutrients to enter the cell. It's as basic as that. So in our convenience type busy lifestyles, where we've got foods that have got shelf lives that we're concerned about, and the food industry is bringing to the party, and has been for years and years, we've gotten used to that. So a whole grain means we need to get some oils out of that food as well. So instead of wasting time talking and realizing that people can't always access even that food these days, what NeoLife did in 1958, because you heard from Drew how long we've been around, it's 63, 64 years ago now, we actually went to some of the staples that people eating, the wheat, for example, and we got the oil. We went to the rice and took the oil, and even to soya, because some populations around the world, that's their staple. And we encapsulated them. So 3-in-1 is actually meaning 3-in-1. We actually took those oils from the staples that people are eating, and think about it, it's a staple. So it's eaten virtually every day. and yet some of the nutrients are actually not there, and that's what our cells need. So that's a starting point. Get that cell plump, receptive, responsive, and enable foods and nutrients to come through the cell membrane into the cell, because it's a little factory doing its work for you. The fruit and vegetable one, I mean, we've all talked about fruit and vegetables for years. If you're a granny now, as a mom, you did that. And if you're somebody's daughter, your mom is telling you that and has for years. But very important, because they are the protectors. Kids learn that at school. They're the protective foods. What do they protect? They protect that cell, that little cell membrane. We've got trillions of those cell membranes. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether they're skin cells or eye cells, they need protection. They need protection from exposure, and they need protection from just the activities, their little factories. So they have waste that has to be managed, and fruit and vegetables help to do that. And this particular one, it might be a new word to you, carotenoid. And you'll see there on the picture of the actual product, there's some bright red and sort of orange colored fruit and vegetables. And that's actually the color of that fruit, those fruit and vegetables. Collectively in that family of red, yellow, and orange ones, the name of the colors are called carotenoids. They have different names per fruit or vegetable, but the collective term is carotenoids. So NeoLife went to, in this particular product, bell peppers and your strawberries and carrots and tomatoes, even some spinach. Actually, the green of the spinach covers some of the color underneath, apricots, and they took the pigment out of them and encapsulated that. And that was actually very unique, because people don't realize that the protector of the fruit and vegetable is its pigment. It protects that bell pepper when it's unexposed. So when we eat it, it protects us. So that's why we're always told to eat a variety of different foods. And even if you don't know about all the different vegetables, just choose a whole lot of different colors, because that's what's going to be good for your body. So we don't have to have all the technical information. NeoLife have got that detail. And even though in my profession, I'm taught to help people to eat properly, have a good plate of food on the table. And as I say, there are just some obvious challenges that I experienced and found very frustrating. But in fact, we don't have to know all that detail too much. We can actually go to those fruit and vegetables and just try and fill that gap, which is what NeoLife has done. But we certainly are not taking the place of the foods. That's always first prize. But of course, as I said, and you can see from the grains, they're not always first prize in terms of their quality and what they're actually providing us. So it's not all about the choices that we make. Sometimes it's the food industry that's providing us with things that aren't necessarily as nutritious as they could be. But these protectors are protecting us in many different ways. And what I want you to also be aware of as I go through, and we haven't got time to go through all the details of the science, but all the products I'm talking about have actually been researched. And everything I'm mentioning, for example, we're talking about anti-aging, we're talking about immunity. We know that when people take this product on a daily basis, it's been researched to show that it'll improve your immune system by 37% in just 20 days. And that's on a healthy individual. So these products have been tested on humans internationally and been published in international journals with this kind of information. So we know that the product starts to behave somewhat like the fruit and vegetable. The body recognizes it with the fruit and vegetable, and it can use it. And that is a result that comes out of it. So this is very powerful stuff. So if people are not eating fruit and vegetables, and how many are we supposed to be eating? Close to 10 portions a day of all those different colors. All of us find that difficult to achieve. And I think the biggest thing is not that we don't try, it's just that we don't manage to do that daily. And that's the advantage of a daily supplement. Just put it in there from those actual foods and at least allow it to do the work that it's going to do. Otherwise, when we are trying to change, and change is not easy anyway, which is one of the things I find most frustrating is that, and I'm human like anyone else, it's not easy to change a habit that you like. If you like having tea in your coffee, sugar in your tea or in your coffee, then, it's difficult to change that. Only often when something goes wrong do we actually make those kind of changes. So I'm very aware that it's not easy to change. So why wait and watch people not change? Enable them to change by putting perhaps, a food-based supplement into the diet on a daily basis, just to try and fill that gap somewhat. So the fruit and vegetable story, we're very big on fruit and vegetables at NeoLife, and this is just one of the families. There are many others, but this is a very powerful tool. Then, of course, proteins. I mean, there again, we're just about entirely made of protein. That cell structure that I showed you is very protein dense, and we need protein on a regular basis. And we do eat quite a lot of protein. You'll actually see there that, in fact, sometimes we're eating high portions of protein, particularly in South Africa, where a lot of people don't consider a meal unless it's got meat on the plate. And fish certainly isn't a food to some people. So, you know, there are quite a lot of challenges there. And of course, many of the proteins and the animal-based ones are good quality proteins. In other words, they are giving you all the amino acids and the structures of protein that you need, but very often come along with a lot of fat that you don't necessarily want in your diet, which you can see there from the upside down triangle that we've got. We're hitting much more fat than we should, and sometimes it's not the most desirable fat. So our proteins are kind of, there's a good side and a bad side to them, but we need to nevertheless, we need to have protein in order that those cells that I showed you can actually repair and renew themselves. I mean, you might just scratch yourself and you expect it simply to heal because you need protein to do that, and skin cells will do that. Even when you cut your hair, it grows because that's protein as well. So if you break a bone, you expect it to repair because you need, as long as you've got the quality protein, the body will do that work for you, but you have to give it the tools. I think a lot of people don't realize that the food that they eat are those tools to enable this body of ours to do all the amazing things it can do without any guidance from us. Just give it the tools. But that's where the gap is. And so this, and there are many shakes on the market, as you well know. But just to give you some sort of insight, NeoLife shake, for example. In fact, I would challenge anyone to be able to get all the nutrient value that's in there, because it's not just protein, it's good quality protein, meaning it's got all the nutrients from a protein point of view that you need to get from the food, because the body can't make all of it. It has to get certain nutrients from the food. Then it does its work with those raw materials. But there's carbohydrate in here. But again, the carbohydrate's there for the energy. It doesn't spike the sugar, so it doesn't upset the sugar levels, which is a huge problem in our communities today. And on top of that, it doesn't make you hungry because of that. The quality of fiber, the amount of vitamins and minerals. To put those 2 scoops that you take out of that product as a portion, mix it just with water. It tastes like a milkshake, but you don't have to add any milk to it. To be able to get all those nutrients on a plate in one meal, which is what this is going to do literally in about 20 seconds, I would challenge anyone to do that. I wouldn't be able to achieve it, even when you have time and even if you have know-how. It's an amazing portion of food that will give you, as I say, all those nutrients that I made mention of in a very easy way. And also what's interesting is that, you know, nowadays with all this modern food technology and also for the shelf life that you want, inevitably there's a preservative in there, or is a colorant or a flavorant or a sweetener. All of those things to entice you to actually have more of the product and for it to be able to, as I say, sit on the shelf or in your cupboard. And yet this product hasn't got any of that. So it's got no artificial sweeteners, colorings, flavorants, or preservatives added. It's got the highest quality protein. Again, it's been tested, also researched, to be able to show you that, in fact, it doesn't spike your sugar, and people, as a result, lose weight because the behavior of the body is more balanced, and that's another whole component that we talked about. But weight loss, of course, is a huge issue, and weight gain is the biggest problem, probably our common denominator in most of our lifestyle diseases. In fact, obesity is being termed a disease because it just sets off so much inflammation in the body, which sets off diseases. Diseases like diabetes, heart disease, even cancers, they are all inflammatory based. And we are eating a lot of inflammatory inducing foods. And why is it inflammatory? Simply because we don't have all these basic nutrients that gives the cell and the body the ability to fight back or to manage. It's what we're going to do. If there's waste, if there's something it doesn't need, it can change it. But if we don't have these nutrients, our bodies can't do their job. So in a way, we're kind of setting ourselves up for a lot of these diseases, very often unwittingly. So if you feel that you're a little out of control and you're trying your best and, you know, the kids won't eat this, or you're not quite sure whether we should put that on the plate, then it really is, there is a solution. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at the foods. That's not my message here at all. The food is the first prize if it's good food, but we don't let the gap get too wide. And that's where NeoLife has come in from a food point of view and said, we're going to help you there. And you heard from Alice, and you're going to hear from others. And that's their story. We didn't, that's their story. We can't take it away from them. She wasn't feeling that good. She took the right products. Her body responded. And then she could be a successful woman in her own right. Then the fats and sugars, I think we actually know that those are a little off the chart in some cases. Foods have got fats in them because it makes the food smell nice, it makes food taste nice. Sugars can be used also to entice you. And if they're sugars, they're refined sugars, that you're constantly hungry. You constantly want some more of that. And so there again, we're creating a desire to eat the wrong foods and constantly are hungry. And so we have to be careful about that. But the right fats, fat has been demonized, and fat is actually extremely important. You already found that the oils, fats and oils in your grains that you actually need, they're just in a liquid form. And that's the type of fat we want. I talked about proteins having good quality protein, but it's the fat that sometimes isn't that desirable because it's a slightly more solid type of fat. So we're looking more for the liquid sort of oils that come into the part of the fat family. And that would be your grain oils and of course your fish oils. And again, most people don't tend to think of fish and oil unless it's been cooked in oil or perhaps tinned in oil. But no, there's certain fish that have oil in their flesh that our bodies actually can't make that oil. And yet every cell needs it. Very much in the brain, very much in the eyes. Very important in the cell membrane that I was showing you. So it works along with the grain oils. So we need to select some fish and have it on our plate. And actually the recommendation scientifically is to have 2 portions a week. Well, I don't think that happens in most families. And it's not always easy to achieve. And not everybody enjoys fish, and it doesn't necessarily form part of everybody's desire to eat. As I say, we as South Africans, and certainly on our continent, meat is a big thing for our meal. So it's quite a challenge to get this into the diet. And as I say, not just something that you can find just anywhere. So it's important that we have something that can fill that gap. And you'll see that for our brain, for our heart, anti-inflammatory. So we're eating inflammatory inducing diets because our bodies don't have the nutrients to fight back. So when there's conflict, there's inflammation. When the body hasn't got the tools, there's conflict. And so that inflammation is what is, as I say, the almost fertilizer for many diseases. So for us to be able to get something in the form of fish that is anti-inflammatory, there's a balance. There's already what food is doing for us. But if we can't achieve that with actual foods, then there's a solution. We have to find one. And of course, I'm sure many of you have heard of omega-3 oils. And you've probably walked into a supermarket or a pharmacy and just looked at the hundreds of them that are on the shelf and wondered, now what? What do I buy? And it is rather daunting. And so, because a lot of products are trading predominantly on the information, like the fact that it's good for the heart or it's anti-inflammatory. But what you want to really know is the product that you're swallowing actually doing that? Or is this product simply got some fish in it and trading on the general scientific information that's well known and anyone can make use of and read for that matter? So what I appreciate about these products is that they have been actually tested. So this particular product has been tested on humans, and we know that it will actually reduce the inflammatory index by 68% in just 8 weeks. So if you think about just if you kept regularly eating fish, your body would be able to manage anything that you might be eating that might be inducing inflammation. Inflammation is normal. We have to have it. It's managing it that's the issue. And that's where the fish oils come in. They manage inflammation for you. They resolve conflicts in the body, settle them down. Any injury or any invasion of any sort, it can be a virus, it can be a bacteria, it can be a burn, it can be a pimple, that will cause inflammation. And the body has to resolve it. What's happening is we're not getting the wherewithal in the food that we are choosing to eat. Given if you just look at that upside down triangle there, we're not getting enough of the right fats and oils to actually help our bodies resolve inflammation. That's why we are so inflamed. And that's why we are subject and open to these diseases of lifestyle that are on the increase, in spite of all the information that we have, in spite of the science that is out there. Those disease patterns are going in the completely wrong direction. And really, we have to take stock. And we have to make sure that, if we can't get our family to eat certain things, or there's certain foods they simply just don't like, what are we going to do about the gap that's created? Because it's not going to help that graph that I was showing you in the beginning. We are going to slip into that 6 zone and hobble along the line on medication, which is great. Medication keeps us going. But we don't learn anything about what our body actually needs. We just keep eating the same foods and hoping the medication is going to work. It's supposed magic. So when we put all that together, you can see we've got a product, which I said I would just talk about some basics. Where would you start with supplementation? Because I'm sure you might have entertained the thought, if you haven't previously taken it and thought, well, I don't know where to start. What's vitamin B? What's vitamin A? What are all these things on the shelf? It is confusing. But if you look at this product, look at the box, there's the food on your plate. That's what should be on the plate. Good quality protein, some fish, fruit and vegetables, whole grains, the oils that are in those grains. So what we've done, and what I've found so amazing that people can at least have some degree of solution to help fill those gaps, is in that little, it's in a little sachet. We've got 30 little sachets in that Pro Vitality box. And then you'll see that little green oval one, that's the grain oils. The darker one there to the right of it, that's the carotenoid complex. Those are the extracts, the pigments from the red, yellow, and orange family of fruit and vegetables. The fish oil capsule there, not just one fish, we've got 4 different fish. And the only product on the market that is actually, because of the 4 different fish that we've selected, because usually you only get perhaps 1, maybe 2. Sometimes, I must say, that they don't even find out what the fish is, which I find quite scary. Some of the products don't even tell you which fish it is. So that would be a bit dicey, I think. You wouldn't accept that in a restaurant if they couldn't tell you what fish you were going to select. You probably wouldn't order it. So don't take something where they don't tell you what fish is there. So as I say, not only do we use 4 different fish, salmon, tuna, sardines, and anchovies, but we actually then provide all 8 most important omega-3s that the body recognizes and can use. Again, that is unique, and that's what intrigues me the most, is that there's no such product as treonine on the market even today, even though there's nothing new news about the fact that foods are processed, but there isn't a treonine product on the market. There isn't a complete carotenoid complex on the market that has actually been patented, because that's actually what happened, because it was so unique. There isn't another product on the market that has all 8 of the omega-3 members of the family. In spite of it, as I say, nothing of it, this is a secret. I mean, this is all totally available information. It's food that's been around, before most of us were born. And yet people haven't they haven't actioned that information. And that's what I enjoy. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to meet the scientists, and there are many of them in the NeoLife family. Many have traveled to South Africa, and many of you have met them. And that's what's pretty unique about the whole thing, is that it's out there, it's been researched, all these products have been researched, all have been published information about them, and all researched on humans. And then that 4th product in there is a multivitamin and mineral to be part of those little green arrows that I showed you in the original diagram. So we've got things that feed the cell, keep the cell well oiled, keep the inflammatory index low so that we're not an inflammatory body, but something that's managing inflammation. And we're protecting our bodies and our cells. Even our cholesterol is being protected from going rancid because of that fruit and vegetable extract. I mean, there's more and more I could say, but it's very exciting when you start to realize that these nutrients they're not just there because someone said they're good for you. They are good for you. And they're good for you because, good for all of us, because they do a job of work. And if they're there on a regular basis, and it doesn't have to be a lot. You see, this is a 30-day supply, for example, in that little sachet. Just to give you a sense of it, there are 15 kilograms worth of whole grains that are going to be in this pack. There are 10 portions of fish. If you would take one of those sachets each day. When I talked about having 2 portions a week, that really means you only need 8 portions. We've got 10 in there just for good measure. That's what we actually equate. We can equate it to the actual food that you need. 36 kilograms of fruit and vegetables that have been used to extract the pigment out of them. That's the detail that's gone into a product like this. So this would really help to fill gaps, make you as a mom feel a lot more proud of the fact that you can give your children or anyone in your family something that's going to just keep them on an even keel. And we've got this sort of representation of nutrients available also for children, for little ones, so that they don't actually have to go down that slide. They can actually stay up there and be energetic for a whole lot longer. That's what we want people to be, energetic. As we're all going to get older, we're all going to mature, and our bodies are going to change, but we don't have to get sick. It doesn't be the automatic thing that happens, and we don't have to slide off that graph, not feeling well. And I'd like to go off that graph, as I'm sure you would, healthy. Why shouldn't we move along and still be healthy? Just
Great, Liz.
Right. Okay. That's
wonderful. Me. Wow. Okay. That is amazing information. And just to the guests on the call, take that those 2 products alone, those are life-changing products. And Liz spoke about those those two little food triangles. You can unshare your screen there, Liz, for me. Thank you. Spoke about those two little food triangles, and know this: the Lord has given us amazing, amazing bodies that are designed to live with health, vitality, energy, bodies that are designed to repair themselves, renew themselves, protect themselves. But man, we have to play our part in this equation, and we need to put the right nutrition and ingredients into our body. And everything that Liz said, because of our modern day lifestyles, because of our modern day diets, that upside down food triangle is killing us. We have a solution with those two products and a healthy eating plan. You can make your food triangle the right way up and feed your body with those right nutrients. And if there's one message you take away with you on this call, is don't wait for that sledgehammer to hit you over the back of the head before you pay attention to your health. If you're on this call now and you're healthy, know that you are blessed with your health. And it's a corny saying. We say health is your greatest wealth. But unfortunately, some people only truly take that on board when they lose it. Health truly is your greatest wealth. So take care of your health, and those two products can help you and everybody, just do exactly that. And somebody did ask a question on the Q&A section, on the comments. Do you have this core nutrition for kids? Yes. Vita Squares, Vita Guard, and the NeoLife Shake. Those are the kids' products that will do exactly what Liz just spoke about, or you can substitute it for the Liquivite. Speak to the person who got you onto this call.